we've just opened it up. Thank you for your patience as we work through the final little moments of refining our presentation for this evening. I'm going to give it just a few moments since we did open it up just a moment ago. I want to orient you to the tool that we're using tonight, and then I'm going to ask Vilma, if you would please, to help interpret that in Spanish for our attendees. We're using Zoom this evening, and if you notice down along the bottom, there's some tools. One is a chat functionality, and that chat functionality is for you to reach somebody on the panelists if you're having issues, like the audio is not working well, you're having some trouble with something having to do with the Zoom tool. The Q&A section is the section for if you actually have questions around the topic that we're talking about tonight, which is the use of devices in the schools with your students. So Q&A, we'll try to answer those questions along the way, and at the end we'll be opening it up for question and answer session. And then lastly, there's an interpretation globe at the bottom, and you can click on that if you'd like to hear this presentation in Spanish. And then we'll be repeating this presentation at 4 o'clock in Spanish, and we'll be interpreting it back to English. Same presentation.
Buenas tardes. Queremos darle unos tips de las herramientas que tenemos aquí abajo en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Si usted quiere decirnos cualquier cosa acerca de cualquier problema tecnológico, ya sea que no escucha muy bien el audio o no ve bien la pantalla, por favor póngalo a donde dice chat. Después queremos llevarlo a donde dice Q&A, es que la letra Q y A. Aquí es donde usted va a poner cualquier pregunta que usted tenga para nosotros y nosotros se las vamos a responder. Y luego si ve el globito que está al lado derecho es interpretation. Ahí es donde usted va a poner, si quiere escuchar todo este audio en español, ahí es donde lo puede cambiar. Va a pucharle allí dice interpretation, hacer clic allí y va a cambiarlo al español.
Great, thank you so much, Vilma. I see a couple of early questions and also want to address what's on the slide in front of you. If you happen to have your student's iPad or Chromebook with you or in the home, it'd be great to send your child off to go get that. It might be helpful at this point in time. If you have a different device, a family device at home, that also could be helpful to have nearby. We'll have some hands-on activity for the participants or the attendees this evening, but it is not absolutely necessary. So you can also just sit and listen, but you can also participate alongside. Additionally, someone was asking if they missed the first one, the 101 on Monday. Not a problem. That has been recorded, as will this be. This will be recorded and posted on the TTSD YouTube site, which is youtube.ttstschools.org. And if I could ask one of our panelists to post that in the chat out to all attendees, that way you've got the location for where the 101 series was on Monday, and then where this will be recorded and posted probably by tomorrow. We're also offering the same cycle of presentations next week. We'll do the 101 series, probably we'll call it 102 because it'll be a little bit better and slightly different, but basically the same information. And then this presentation will be repeated again next Tuesday. And maybe Vilma, if you would like to just one more time talk about the interpretation globe, just to make sure folks get into the right language of their choice, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Of course. Si se fijan en la parte inferior de su pantalla, hay un globito que dice interpretation. Si puede hacer clic en este globito, usted puede cambiar todo este audio al español. En lo que Susan Bernard está hablando, vamos a tener a África también interpretando todo al español. Así es que haga ahí clic en el globo que dice interpretation y cámbielo al español si desea.
Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. Again, just a reminder, this is the TTSD Family Technology Night 201. This evening, we're going to be really focusing on what tools are out there for parents to connect with what's happening in the classroom and with students. while this feels maybe like a little bit of a training, there's also going to be a lot more information coming out in the coming weeks and as school gets started. So this is just to get you started and to start getting you comfortable with the tools that your students going to be using and what you might be using this year. Next slide, please. My name is Susan Bernard. I'm the IT director with the school district. Sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. We've got Andy Van Vliet, the principal at Fowler Middle School, as a panelist with us. And I apologize, I forgot to update this slide. We actually have Vilma Madrigal. We've got Africa on interpretation for us, and we've got Mariella Kolkman with us as well, doing, they are helping with interpretation this evening. And then we have instructional coaches, Michelle Edwards and Jennifer Sapinski with us. So we've got a whole series of folks from different perspectives to help answer questions you might have this evening or this afternoon. All right, next slide, please. And so today, what we're going to discuss are student accounts, Canvas and other apps for students and how you get into those, access for parents, where to get help, and then at the end, we'll have a Q&A session. Next slide, please. Let's start with student accounts. Next slide. As kindergartners, all the way through 12th grade, where they come in as kinder or they come in as a 4th grader, all students get issued a student account. And they're structured in a way to help both the students and the teachers help students get used to having a digital account and a password. Students can change their password at any time, and we'll talk about that at a different session. But I want to make sure parents and then kids, students, if you're on as well, remember what their account is, because it's been a few months over the summer, or if you weren't aware of it from last spring, or if you're a new parent to the Tigard-Tualatin community, you have an idea of what that structure is. It's the way this account is structured is it's their graduation year. So in this circumstance, I believe the class of 2027 is 8th grade. Mr. Van Vliet, would you happen to know that, being a middle school principal? Otherwise, I have to do my
I'm sorry, can you re-ask that? I was typing a response.
No problem. I probably can answer my own question. So the 2-digit year at the beginning is the graduation year of the student. So this year, seniors are the class of 21. So a senior this year would be 21 and then Bernard S. 27 is 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. Sorry, it's a 6th grader. So this is an example of a 6th grader. So a 6th graders this year, hard to believe, but they're going to graduate in the year 2027. So that 27 comes from the graduation year. The Bernard is the last name of the student, and the S is the first initial. So assuming that the student is Sebastian Bernard and he's a 6th grader, his login will be 27 Bernard S, and the rest of it is at ttsdstudents.org. So that's their Google email account, and all TTSD students have one as soon as they register for the school district. Might take a day. So then the password is also a bit of a pattern to help kids remember it and for teachers to help those students. And again, this is something students can change. But to get them started, that it's a capital first initial. So in this case, the student's name is Sebastian. So it's a capital S. It's his student ID number, which is a 6-digit number that same as the lunch number that kids used to get hot lunch, library number. Most kids know that number because of this password, especially after last spring. But their number is the number in between. So in this case, the example is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then the last character in their password is a lowercase letter for their last name. So in this case, little Sebastian's last name is Bernard, and so it's a lowercase b. Some of the questions that have come up previously is if it's a hyphenated last name, say it's Bernard James, and there's a hyphen in there, what we do for the accounts is we would just take out the hyphen and then squish it together. So it'd be 27 Bernard James S. So that's if your kiddos aren't in kindergarten or aren't brand new to the school district, this would be a lovely thing to ask them if they remember. You might try to prompt them, try and give them the number and see if they can come up with the rest of it. And then also to help them practice their password. If you don't know the password or your child doesn't know the password, you can call your school office, or at the end of this presentation, we'll also show you where you can call to get some help. But if you don't have that information at home, especially for younger age kids, elementary school or younger elementary school, you may want to have this written down somewhere as a reference for you to help your students throughout the year. Or if a daycare, your neighbor down the street is helping with daycare, just whoever's going to be helping the student with their homework and their home learning. All right, next slide, please. So, and then just a note about the keeping our student data private. We require all of vendors that we work with, or any place that we put student information, any accounts where kids are logging in, we require the vendor to sign a data confidentiality agreement with us. It's a common one that's now recently been shared across the state. So Beaverton, Sherwood, Portland Public, Salem, everybody's using a very similar, actually the same data confidentiality agreement with our vendors. And so our vendors are getting a little bit more aware of how important it is for us to keep track of this student data. If you have any wonderings whether we're using a particular app or not, or if we have a confidentiality agreement signed by a vendor, you can go to this digital resource menu that we've got listed here on the website on the screen. So menu.clever.com and then a /TTSD for Tigard-Tualatin School District. So again, that's just a reference for you if you want to look up what apps we're using or what vendor confidentiality agreements we have. I see a question that popped up. If we go back one slide. Just one more note here. This is a good pattern to get started. If there's a Samuel, a Sebastian, and a Sally Bernard all in the 6th grade, even if they're at different schools, some of them will end up with a 1 or a 2 afterwards. So again, your kiddos for sure, grades 3 through 12 should know what their account is already. But if you have any questions about that, you can reach out to your school. And again, at the end of the presentation, we'll give you a place to call or to connect with to make sure you know what that information is. We have plenty of time before school starts, but it's just one of those things that if you want to put that on your checklist for getting ready for back to school, this is one of those things you'll want to have handy. Okay, next slide and next slide. So now we're going to talk a little bit about Canvas and some of the other apps that I referred to on that digital resource menu. Next, please. Again, the 27 Bernard S for our little student Sebastian that we made up, that account is going to be used for just about everything that we use at Tigard-Tualatin School District. And I say just about everything because there might be 1 or 2 apps out there that teachers have used that have more of a generic account that kids log in with. But by and large, it is our goal that they just use this single account so that whenever they go into one app or another, they can get in there pretty easily. So Canvas is the main app that we'll be using this year. It's a platform that we're using to kind of host online school. But kids will also be logging into Google Drive. Epic is a great resource this summer. If you haven't had your kids jump into Epic on the devices they have at home from school or even on your own devices, have them log into Epic. They can read books online. Books are available in English and in Spanish. We have audiobooks. So whether you're learning English or you're learning Spanish, there's some audiobooks that are great practice for if you're taking a Spanish 1 class as a 6th grader, or if you're a 1st grader and just want to have the book read to you. So I highly encourage using Epic. And again, you're going to use the TTSD account to log into that. Clever is the icon at the top. We use that quite a bit to launch into some apps. And then also very importantly on the right-hand side is the TTSD web filter. For kids in grades K through 8, they all have iPads. All students in the school district have some sort of device that we issue. In kindergarten through 8th grade, those student devices are iPads. In high school, they're Chromebooks. but specific to the K through 8 students that have iPads, each day, the students are going to need to click on the TTSD web filter and sign in with, the TTSD student account. So that 27 Bernard S for little Sebastian at ttsdstudents.org, and his regular password, his capital S, 123456, and the little b. That'll get him in so that he can get onto the internet on that device. If you find yourself in the morning, not being able to get into Canvas or Epic or Google Drive, the first thing that we want to do is, one, make sure you're on wireless, that you've got a connection up in the corner. And then that second thing is to check this TTSD web filter icon, and it'll be on the dock down at the bottom of your iPad, the student's iPad, and it will tell you if you're successful. So once you click on it and it says success, then you know that's great. That means your Wi-Fi is working, you're connected to the network just fine, and you should be good to go. High school, the Chromebooks, when you just log into the Chromebook, again, with your TTSD student account, it automatically puts the filter in place. So no matter what network the TTSD devices are on, whether it's at school or at home or grandma's or Starbucks or McDonald's, they're always subject to whatever filter we have in place through the school district. And we talked a little bit about that on Monday, but just generically in broad strokes, the society and social media is blocked on that. Anything that's inappropriate content, games, those categorically are blocked. And then real specifically, Facebook, Snapchat, and Instagram are also blocked. So hopefully the kids are starting to look at this as a learning tool and less of a social tool, but hopefully they'll get some social interaction in their classrooms through their teachers too. All right, let's go ahead, thank you. Access for parents. Next slide, please. So this is the first time that we will be talking about this. So I ask for a little bit of grace as we step through this process in hopes that everything is working well. We were doing some last minute things about an hour ago, but I really wanted to make sure that this was available today, and then hopefully it works. So if not, give me a couple days and we'll have it cleaned up, but I think it'll be just fine. As parents at Tigard-Tualatin School District, you were asked to sign up for a parent view account. Some folks did that many years ago. Some did it earlier this calendar year. And then many of you were sent an email just recently, probably about 3 weeks ago, when we started talking about the need to sign up for 100% online or hybrid instruction for reopening this fall. Sadly, we probably inundated your inbox with a bunch of activation codes. If you don't have a parent view account, that's how you received your activation code. So what we want to do is we want to get as many parents signed up with Parent View as possible. If you need a Parent View account, your first step would be is to look at your inbox of your home email and look for Parent View, parent and then VUE, and see if you received an activation code. It's the same account that you used if you were successful in signing your child up for 100% online or hybrid instruction, same account. If you didn't do that and you called in or you phoned the school or somebody called you, you can call the school, and we have that here a couple slides in, the phone number, and they can help you get set up with a Parent View account. It's really important that we have that set up for parents because that's the account that parents are going to use to log into Canvas. So Parent View, well, I'll go into that to the next slide, but the website, if you are playing along at home and you have a device in front of you and you want to open up a web browser, what we're going to do is we're going to move into Canvas here shortly, and the website is along the bottom. We'll post that in the chat here in just a few moments too, but I want to make sure everybody has a solid foundation between what Parent View is and then what Canvas is. That URL at the bottom is for Canvas. Let's go to the next slide and we'll talk about Parent View for just another moment, or the differences between the two. Parent View has been around at secondary for many years. We introduced it at elementary school this last year in January or so. And Parent View is the official app that we use to look at the official information about student records. So that would be attendance, final grades, any accommodations the students has, their state test scores, and demographic information. So first name, last name, address, all that good stuff about the students, that is kept in Synergy. And Parent View is the parent's portal to look at what information we have about your child in Synergy. So that is our official student information system. And there's some resources there that are listed here that are really helpful for parents to have. The big thing this next year is attendance will continue to be available through Parent View, daily attendance, and then of course, final grades for the term and report cards, transcripts, that's all in Parent View. So then, whoops, let's go back one. Thank you. That was just a big old pause so I can make sure that I'm not overwhelming our interpreter. Sorry about that. Canvas, on the other hand, is our new learning management platform. So you might hear the word platform quite a bit. It replaces Seesaw and Google Classroom, if those terms are familiar to you from last year. In grades K through 12, we'll be using Canvas. And so what you as a parent and then students can get in Canvas is daily assignments. It's where students are going to log into every day to connect with their teachers, to get instructional lessons, activities. They're going to have discussions. So all the daily events are happening in Canvas. As a parent, that's where you can also go in to see, well, what's coming due? If Susie wants to go off to the mall, although in these times, maybe that's not what we have in front of us, but if Susie wants to go and play on her Xbox for a little bit, you as a parent can pop into Canvas and you can see what's coming due and have a conversation with Susie about whether or not she's got some of those assignments done. It's also a place for students and for parents to see what's happening on a day-to-day basis with grades. For those of you that were here last year and you have been in Parent View as a secondary school parent, that information that you saw in Parent View in the grade book is now going to be available in Canvas. So progress grades, daily grades, whether assignments were corrected or graded, that's all in Canvas this year. So we want to make sure that you know how to use your Parent View to get into Canvas. It's also where teacher communication, and it's essentially the online classroom this school year. That's what Canvas is. All right, next slide, please. So again, just how to get into Parent View, look for an email that has an activation code. That email would have been sent middle of July. If you can't find that email, you can call your school for an activation code or help in getting an account set up. They can set one up over the phone with you. And then the last step would be is to log into Parent View. And that's what we've got showing on the screen here is the Parent View URL. So it's just pview.ttsd.k12.or.us. And if we hit the next slide, Thor, I believe, yeah, here are the phone numbers for the schools. So I'll just pause here and let you take a screenshot of it or jot down the phone number to get to the school where your kids attend, just in case you need it to reach out to ask for some assistance around Parent View or help with a student's password or their ID number. The other place you can find students' ID numbers on report cards. So if that's something you file away, you can pull out last spring's report card, final report card, and you can look for their student ID number. That is the 6-digit number that they're going to need to know for their password. All right, let's go ahead and hit the next slide. So if you're trying to get into Parent View, here's the first screen that you see when you do that pview.ttsd.k12.or.us. Go ahead, next slide. You click I'm a parent. Depending on where you're coming into Parent View from, if you already have your account and you know what it is, you type in your username and your password and you log in. If you received that code through your email, you're going to click the yellow Activate Account button at the bottom, and it's going to walk you through what your first name is, your last name, and that activation code. And then if you had an account, but you don't remember your password, you can click on that red lock that says Forgot Password, and that will send you the password or a link to reset your password through the email that you enter and the one that we have on file. Once you get into Parent View, there's a menu on the left-hand side. You should have, if you have one child, you'll have access to the one child. If you have 5 children, you'll have access to all 5 children in this one account. So that's probably the first thing you'll want to check on is if you have multiple children, make sure they're all showing. It's possible if you register at different schools, not perfect by any means, but it's possible that you might end up with 2 parent accounts, and we want to get those merged. So another great example of just making sure we have the right information to get a hold of you and your family, and we have all the siblings connected successfully. You've got a menu on the left-hand side, messages that could be sent out through the school, calendar. Course history is something that's helpful, especially at secondary school, to look back at 9th grade and 8th grade and 10th grade to see what's happened. Report card, once you get in, you can see the report cards digitally that were sent out to you through the mail. School information has contact information, phone numbers, and email addresses. Student information has information about little Sebastian or little Susie, about name, address, birth date, home language, race and ethnicity, whether they have any special accommodations, those types of things. Test history would be state test scores, so you can go back and you can pick those up there if you're curious to see what that was in previous years. And then documents, or any documents that are attached to the student. That could be possibly an IEP, individual education plan. It could be proof of documentation or address verification. So maybe a bill or something that you chose to show for your address. So documents, there's not too many things in there just yet, but there are some things like 504 plans and individual education plans that are there. Next slide, please. So that was Parent View. Parent View, again, has been around for a little while, newer to our elementary school families, and definitely new to new families. So you need that account first. Once you get that Parent View account, you will then have the tools that you need to get into Canvas. So step 1 is get your Parent View account. Step 2 is to visit the Canvas website. And the Canvas website for TTSD, for Tigard-Tualatin School District, is ttsd.instructure.com. We'll also be putting links on our website here in the next coming weeks as we get ready for school to make sure you have easy access to that. Next slide, please. So once you go to ttsd.instructure.com, you'll be choosing if you're a staff member, a student, or a parent. For this scenario, we're going to go through that you're a parent, so you're going to click on I'm a parent. Next slide, please. And the very first thing when you go into Parent View, or excuse me, Canvas, is you're going to say you forgot your password. So you're going to go ahead and next slide, please. You're going to click that I forgot my password link if you're playing along at home. And then you're going to put your email address in there and say request password. So the account that you're using between Parent View and Canvas is exactly the same, but you're going to set a different password. You can make it the same password, but you need to set your password in Canvas. So you'll then get an email from TTSD Canvas. It'll say you've requested a password reset. It'll give you a link to go in and set your new password. And then from that point forward, you'll continue to use your Parent View account. If you could go back one slide, Thor. You'll use your Parent View account. That may be your email, but it may not be. It might be that you just picked something fun, fuzzybunny123, versus, you know, susan.bernard@gmail.com. So whatever you use for your Parent View account, you'll use here with that password that you just set. So that's the type of thing that you want to, if you're playing along at home and you want to try this out, those are the key steps to get you into Canvas as a parent. There's not a lot in there yet because we haven't built everything around it in the classes and the students, but getting yourself ready and getting your account all set up will put you in a really good spot to start the school year. 2 slides forward, please. Perfect. First thing you'll see when you pop in there is something about notifications. So you can click that notification preferences button when you go in, and you can, there's a lot of choices. I would start small and turn most things off, and then turn some things on that you definitely want to hear about, whether that's new assignments or grades that are being posted. You also have the possibility at that point, if you don't want to be communicated just by email, you could put in a cell phone number if you'd like to get updates that way. You also could put in other email addresses. Maybe grandma helps quite a bit and grandma's going to be popping in and wanting some information. You could put her email in here too, but this is something that's going to be sending out information out about your child. So you want to make sure that you are allowing them to have the educational rights to whatever information is getting passed to them. So notification preferences is going to be a good thing to review now and probably in the future as well. Next slide, please. This is how you get into notifications. If you didn't click that red button or you don't get it, on the left-hand side, you'll see the TTSD emblem in the top corner, and just underneath that, it says account. When you click on account, you'll see this menu that pops up, which is notification, profile, files, settings. And if you click in notifications, you'll get to the same place that that red set notifications button would take you to. Next slide, please. There are a variety of things that we can do to get things set up in Canvas, and I just want to start with some of the higher level pieces. Again, we'll be providing a lot more instructional videos and help sessions in the future, but I want to, for those that are interested, I want to get you in, get you connected so that you feel like you've got that done, check, and you can move on to back to school shopping or whatever next is on your list. Also underneath the account menu, if you could go back just one slide, Thor. The account that's right underneath the emblem, we went to notifications first. Now we're at settings, that fourth one down. Next slide, please. And under settings, down at the very, very bottom, I didn't put a slide picture of it, there's an edit settings button. So you're going account and then settings, then all the way down to the bottom to say edit settings. But once you get into edit your settings, you've got these choices in front of you. And some of the big ones are, you can change your password here. You can set your default language here. If you want your default language to be something other than English, it'll come in as English to begin with. And then also you can choose your pronouns, which apparently is something that Canvas has just recently come out with. So that's helpful. Once you change anything in here, you want to make sure and hit that red update settings button in the bottom. And that'll save your choices here. And set up your system, your profile, your account in Canvas as a parent. It'll save those. Next slide, please. And then a click, if you would, Thor. Anywhere. Yep. Oops, just one click, thanks. So this is a typical Canvas dashboard. Your dashboard will not look like this yet. I don't imagine you will have 10 courses. Actually, you might if you've got multiple students. So every one of the squares that are on the screen here are the courses that your kids will be enrolled in. If you have 2 children and they're both at high school and each of them are taking 4 classes, you might have 8 squares here, 8 cards. And it will say down at the bottom who you are observing for. So they call parent accounts observer accounts. And you'll see an observation for Sebastian and an observation for little Sally, if those are the 2 kids that you have, Sally and Sebastian. So again, very similar. On the left-hand side, you have a menu where your account and your settings are. Dashboard is probably your second one down. Courses is just another way to get to your classes. Calendar is a good way to see what's coming due. And then inbox is a way to communicate with your teacher, your child's teacher. The center part again is the listing of the classes. They won't say demo in front of them. It should say something like Algebra 1 or Math 4th grade or Language Arts or Reading 4th grade, Science 5th grade, those types of things. And in future trainings or videos, we'll go into the details of all the little icons that are showing on the bottom. Then lastly, on the far right, just to kind of orient you to this default screen, this dashboard screen is the to-do list. So that's really where we're going to be having students focus, is what's coming due. There'll be dates with it. There should be dates. It looks like in this example, I don't have due dates, so that's a poor example, but it'll tell you how many points are possible, when it's due, and what class it's associated with. And they can click straight on it and go right to the instruction. Let that sink in just for a minute. All right. Let's go ahead and hit the next slide. Lastly, before we go into some Q&A session, where can I get technology help? Next slide, please. This is our final topic for today. There is a website that we brought up last spring called, so sorry, that should say Family Help. Parent Help will get you there too, but familyhelp.ttsdschools.org will take you to a knowledge base site where you can search for help articles like how do I log into Canvas and how do I help my child turn in their assignment and how do I contact my teacher, those types of things. How do I connect to Wi-Fi? What's the internet filter? All those commonly asked questions we're trying to put into a common database so you can ask your question and get your answer there. Also, beginning the first day of school, September 14th, we'll have a technology help desk available from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. And that's the phone number there if you want to take a picture of the screen again. Anything that comes in after hours, those voicemails will be returned the next day. And there's some pretty specific directions on the voicemail about what kind of information would give us a good head start on how we can help you, and first names, last names, students' names, what the issue is, and what kind of device you're on. And then lastly, like this presentation, we are sharing instructional videos for training or community sessions at the YouTube site for TTSD, which is youtube.ttsdschools.org. So that's a good screen to take a screenshot of if that's something you think it might be helpful for you in the future. And if we hit the next slide, I think we can hop into some questions. At this point, I'm going to ask our panelists who've been doing a great job. Holy cow, we've answered 58 questions already. Nice job, you guys. If you want to unmute, if you've got some questions that you think would be helpful to, even though we may have answered them, it might be good to verbalize them just so everybody can get a sense of what type of questions are common.
So Susan, one of the most common questions I noticed was that the Canvas app is not showing up on a student's iPad. And so the answer that Mariella was giving was that that the student iPad needs to be on and connected to the internet for the app to be showing up. It was pushed out from the IT department, the district IT department. And so it may take a few days of having, you need to have the iPad on and connected to the internet. If it still does not show up, then Mariella was directing people to call the IT help desk. But first, give it a day of being connected to the internet to make sure that it's going to be there. Another common question that was asked was that when they logged into the Canvas app, there was nothing there. Students hadn't been assigned anything yet. And so that's true. That's good, because that's the way it should be. Students haven't been assigned to courses quite yet. Those are the two most common questions that I noticed.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I'm going to offer one more piece of advice on the app. And this is, if nothing else from this that you take away, and you have a student in kindergarten through 8th grade, your steps every day, Wi-Fi, make sure you log into the filter. You will not get the Canvas app until you get on the filter. That filter is kind of the gateway to the internet. And that Canvas app is sitting out on the internet from the district site. And so you got to get through the filter to have that come down. So Wi-Fi, internet, the filter, and then you might as well pop on Google or something and just make sure your internet's working. You could also try going into self-service, which is the TTSD App Store. And then absolutely, that app should be coming down here in the next few days. Thank you for that.
Another question that just popped up that reminded me of our last presentation. What are the hours that are going to be set for iPads and Chromebooks? And I know that there was a discussion of changing that, and then a family that may want to edit that. So what advice could you give that?
So last year and the years before, in kids grades kindergarten through 8th grade, there was a curfew that came on at 10 o'clock. So even if your Wi-Fi was on, the student devices that we issue to students would not work. They wouldn't access the internet after 10 o'clock, and it would be made available again at 5 a.m. The idea was to give them some time to focus on sleeping or doing something else. During this next school year, life's a little different this time, and people's schedules at home might be a little different. So there's been some requests or suggestions to maybe open that up to maybe 11 o'clock for middle school students, or even for all students, depending on, you might be working during the day and kiddos are with daycare. And so you're going to plan to do some of that work at night with them, and you want a little bit more time in the evening. So we're working through that process right now. What we did last time, and it's certainly worth another go this time in the chat versus the Q&A section, so the place where we ask for you to give some technical advice. If you're interested in having, actually either way, on the topic of curfew, if you could let us know by putting something into the chat, either keep it the same, which is to turn it off at 10 p.m., or possibly extend it to either 11 or midnight. The question we asked before was same, put 11 in there for 11 p.m., midnight, or 12 p.m. if you think it should be extended to midnight. And that might be really helpful to give us a sense of where we are. The first night, it was pretty obvious middle school attendees, parents were thinking 11 o'clock would be a little bit more helpful for them and their students. And when in doubt, because maybe in 4 weeks from now, you remember you attended this session and you remember there was a curfew and you don't remember seeing anything following up on it, I would grab your child's iPad, or Chromebook won't have a curfew, but grab the iPad at 11:05 and see if it'll tell you. It'll tell you that the curfew is enabled, and it'll tell you the hours. So you should be able to find out what those hours are just by trying to test it in a reasonable time, 11, 12, or even early in the morning. And we'll have all this chat so we can bring this back. Thank you. Appreciate actually the clarity for some of the folks in the response. That's really helpful. All right. Other panelists or questions? Let's see.
Susan, I think we answered this question in the chat, but it came up multiple times.
Perfect.
Several parents saw OLR in Synergy about registration. Is there any action they need to take?
Not at this time. OLR stands for online registration. Be nice if we could change it, but that is just what it is. And what online registration is for Synergy is it's a place to register new students. It's the place that we also get updated information from parents. So an example of us using that online registration was the hybrid and 100% sign up. We used online registration for that purpose. The next time you'll probably see it is somewhere October, November, when we ask, for those of you that have done this before, we used to come in and do profile sheets, and you come and visit with your parents or your teachers at back to school night. And you'd have a sheet of paper that said all the contact information about you and your family and how to contact you. That's going to be digital this year. So the next time that you'll see online registration, you're going to go through Parent View, you'll get some emails about it, and it'll push you into online registration and just ask you to verify the information we have about you so we can get any updated phone numbers or emails that you may have. Let's see. Does the curfew give a warning is a great question. I do not believe it does. So most of the work that we do is Google-based, which means it saves along the way. So it may just be that if you've got a late night fifth grader and the curfew's still at 10 o'clock, you can set an alarm on the iPad for 9:55. And that way he or she doesn't run into that problem where they might lose their work or they get surprised by the fact that it's 10 o'clock.
There's another question here in the Q&A. Is there a plan to have support available after 4 p.m. for those people who will be working with their students in the evenings?
You know, Jeff, that's a great question. And we are trying very hard to figure that out. There are a number of districts across the state of Oregon that are coming together that are trying to offer a statewide help desk for parents that, for exactly that reason. It's after dinner and now's the time you have to work with the kids and you've run into a problem. So you most definitely have the help desk where you can put in a ticket and you can let us know when is a good time to get a hold of you. But I also hope that maybe in a month or so, we'll have figured out if there's also another resource that we could help offer to parents in the evenings when that might be when schooling and learning is happening. The other thing I'll make mention of is ideally in the next week or so, and remember this is just our first of these sessions, we will have a class in there, a practice class that students can get into to start using the tool of Canvas so that when we get to September 14th, they will at least have had some experience in there. They can answer some questions. They can practice using the submission buttons. So just because there's nothing there right now, and their classes probably won't be in there for a week to 10 days, we'll probably have a landing class, a sample class, a practice class that they could dig into. And it's most likely going to be around how do you use your device and or some digital citizenship. So for
Susan, there's I'm sorry, there's a question here about Google Meet. On Monday's meeting, we mentioned Google Meetings. And so if it's a live class meeting, it would be through Google Meet, not through Zoom. So I'm not sure if that exactly answers the question that's being asked, but if there is a live class meeting, it would be through Google Meet.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. I see a question that hasn't been answered yet. Susie, students will not have to do the reset password. Students can log in right now with just that student account that we talked about earlier in the session. If they are a returning student or old enough student to have remembered that from last spring, or maybe they use it over the summer, they can just log in right now. Again, they won't see much, but they'll at least get past the login part and they'll be able to be ready for when a class does land in there for them. I think we have time for a couple more questions, but then I think we'll wrap it up and then put this video up on the YouTube site for others to view if they weren't able to make it. Does anybody see any other questions that might be a good one to make sure we verbalize?
Holly's asking if students can link to Google Meet through Canvas. And if a teacher has posted a Google Meet link in Canvas, then yes, it will, they just tap the link or click the link within that Canvas message and it will open up Google Meet automatically. They don't have to do anything separate.
Some of the feedback we heard in the spring was there was too many places to go. And so the response to that is Canvas, where it is a starting place for everyone. All students and teachers might link from there to something like Google Meet so the kids can participate. But by and large, we're trying to get everybody into Canvas, into their card or their classroom, and then right into whatever they're supposed to be doing. So on the first day of school on September 14th, students will be logging into Canvas and be connecting with their teachers that way. Homeroom, first period, more information will be coming about that as we get closer. All right, I appreciate your time this evening. Again, we're going to be doing these next week as well. I think we'll take a week off and then we'll do it again the first week of school. So, and then we'll be providing more support along the way. So familyhelp.ttsdschools.org. The 503-431-4051 is our help desk where you can leave a voicemail. And then youtube.ttsdschools.org. Schools are doing also one-on-one community sessions this week. I encourage you to attend those, but those are also on the YouTube site in case you weren't able to reach it to hear some specifics about your school or your children's school. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, panelists. Really appreciate your time this evening. And we hope to see you next week.